Under the pale wash of a porch light, the night vibrates with wings. Moths funnel toward the bulb's hypnotic glow, tracing pale spirals through the humid air. Their flight is erratic, governed by confusion more than intent. Every orbit brings them closer to the invisible line where light meets leaf, the jagged edge of the hedge that marks the mantis's hunting ground. The camera settles low, level with a twig no thicker than a pencil, and there she is, still, green, sculpted by shadow and purpose. The praying mantis waits, a living filament strung between hunger and patience. Her forelegs, folded as if in prayer, betray the tension of an athlete poised at the starting line. Each joint is locked into a coiled geometry of violence. The compound eyes, enormous and glossy, track motion with a precision that feels almost mathematical. Mantis vision is not passive, it is a continuous triangulation, a living algorithm. The two forward-facing eyes, rare among insects, confer depth perception, allowing her to judge distance with uncanny accuracy. In this dim cone of light, the mantis doesn't simply see, she calculates. A moth drifts too close, its dusty wings scattering light like drifting ash. The mantis's head tilts, slow, deliberate, almost curious. But it is not curiosity that drives her. It is alignment. In that moment, both eyes lock onto the prey, fusing two mosaics of pixelated motion into one exact position in space. Beneath the calm surface, a microstorm of signals cascades through her thorax. The forelegs tense, the inner tendons stretch and load like springs drawn to the breaking point. The raptorial limbs of a mantis are masterpieces of biomechanical engineering. Along the inner edge of each femur runs a row of saw-like spines, fine-tuned for grip rather than laceration. At the joint, the tibial claw curves inward, forming a deadly hinge that snaps shut with astonishing force. The mechanism is elastic-powered, not muscle-driven, a catapult of stored energy. When the signal fires, the strike unfolds faster than the human eye can follow, completing in roughly 1/20th of a second. From stillness to impact, the motion is pure precision. The moth has no time to register the flash of green before the world becomes a cage of spikes. The forelegs close like a bear trap, pinning the body without crushing it. To the mantis, the world now narrows to the rhythm of movement, the flex and torque required to secure the catch. She pivots slightly, using the mass of her prey to anchor her stance, and twists. The strike is not over. It transitions into a lock. The tibial claw ratchets tighter, spine against segment, preventing even the smallest twitch of escape. Then comes the bite. Unlike many predators that strike first and eat later, the mantis begins consumption almost immediately. Her mandibles, built for shearing, find the cervical joint of the moth just behind the head. The motion is clean, deliberate, a quick end. It is not cruelty, but efficiency. In the insect world, delay invites risk. Motion attracts rivals, ants or wasps that could steal her kill. The mantis knows this in the way instinct knows all things. For a moment, the porch light flares brighter, and her silhouette sharpens against the hedge. In this sudden backlight, her body reveals its functional elegance. The spined forelegs, the angular thorax, the poised abdomen balancing her mass. Every segment reflects purpose evolved over tens of millions of years. The mantis lineage extends deep into prehistory, long before birds, even before flowers had diversified across the continents. What we see now is the distilled result of eons of refinement, a hunter specialized for ambush, deception, and speed. The air around her hums again. More moths pass through the beam, fluttering dangerously close. But the mantis does not move. Her hunger is sated for now, and she enters the second phase of her ritual, maintenance. The forelegs, still tacky with hemolymph, open slowly as she begins to groom. Using the fine bristles on her mouthparts, she scrapes the spines one by one, removing dust, scales, and residue. This is no idle behavior. Clean spines ensure grip, clogged ones dull the lock. The mantis resets her weapons as a soldier cleans a blade after battle. Grooming in insects often carries layers of meaning beyond hygiene. In the mantis, it is both mechanical and sensory. Each spine contains micro-hairs tuned to touch and vibration, allowing her to feel the resistance of prey even in total darkness. Any obstruction dulls this sensitivity, compromising her precision. By cleaning each segment, she restores not just sharpness but perception, recalibrating her body for the next hunt. The camera drifts closer, catching the minute articulation of her mouthparts. The mandibles move in a rhythmic, almost meditative sequence, guided by ancient neural loops that need no conscious control. The mantis doesn't think about grooming. It happens as naturally as breathing. Her world is a series of feedback systems: light intensity, limb tension, chemical trace, vibration. All processed through a brain no larger than a grain of rice, yet capable of making moment-to-moment decisions with near-machine efficiency. Backlighting plays a crucial role in this choreography of survival. The mantis's visual system is optimized for contrast. Against a glowing background, her binocular vision sharpens, silhouettes stand out, and depth cues multiply. This is why she positions herself along the edge of the light cone, not directly beneath it. To us, it may appear as chance. To her, it is strategy. The darker foliage behind her body masks her presence, while the illuminated air in front exaggerates the outlines of her prey. The porch light, a human invention, becomes her artificial moon, an ecological hack she's learned to exploit. In a broader sense, this moment under the porch light mirrors a larger truth about evolution. Adaptation favors opportunism. The mantis was not designed for electric light, yet she has repurposed it. In suburban gardens, tropical forests, or arid scrublands, mantises show the same behavioral plasticity. They hunt where the odds tilt in their favor, on flower heads, on walls, even near street lamps. Their sensory systems, ancient yet adaptable, allow them to integrate into human environments without losing their ecological edge. As the night deepens, the light hums on, and the hedge becomes quiet again. The moths thin out, their numbers dwindling as the temperature drops. The mantis, having finished her grooming, shifts her posture, forelegs folded, body aligned once more along the stem. She is ready, always ready. Beneath her stillness lies the certainty of design, the quiet assurance that the next opportunity will come, and she will be there, perfectly calibrated for motion. The camera lingers on her head, the triangular face turning slightly toward the lens. In that alien expression, framed by darkness and glow, lies something eerily familiar. Focus, a clarity of purpose stripped of distraction, driven only by survival. For the mantis, every night is a new calculation. Every flicker of motion, a potential meal. And when the line between light and shadow draws close enough, she will strike again. 1/20th of a second to rewrite the balance of life and death under a porch light. The camera opens on a trembling leaf, its edge sharp against the morning light. Dew clings to the surface like beads of glass, refracting 100 miniature suns into the forest air. Perched on the rim, a spider no larger than a fingernail stands still, except for the pulse of its abdomen and the minute swiveling of its head. The lens tightens until only the face fills the frame. Two enormous glossy eyes dominate, each black as obsidian and rimmed in fine iridescence. They stare directly back. This is the world through the principal eyes of a jumping spider, a creature that doesn't wait for prey to come but calculates its own flight path to intercept it. From this intimate distance, the eyes seem almost mammalian in expressiveness, but their function is anything but simple. Each principal eye holds a tubular retina at the back of a long, narrow chamber, allowing for extraordinary resolution and depth discrimination. Behind them, three smaller pairs of secondary eyes sweep the periphery, scanning for motion. Together, this array gives the spider a near 360-degree view. But the key difference is in how these eyes cooperate. When something moves in the background, the secondary eyes pick it up first, then the head turns, and the principal pair locks on, refining the target's distance, size, and trajectory with a clarity no other arachnid can match. The camera shifts its focus from those glossy orbs to the air just beyond the leaf, where a gnat drifts lazily through the shafts of light. It flutters with the randomness typical of small dipterans, unaware that every erratic movement is being logged and modeled in the predator's brain. The jumping spider does not simply see, it predicts. Its visual processing centers are capable of constructing three-dimensional spatial maps, estimating velocity and angle, then computing an intercept point several body lengths ahead of where the prey currently is. This predictive tracking is not instinctive guesswork. It's a finely tuned neurological operation rivaling that of much larger animals. But prediction alone does not launch a leap. Inside the spider's legs, a pressurized system of fluid dynamics prepares for action. Spiders lack the extensor muscles most insects use to straighten their limbs. Instead, they rely on hydraulics. When the time comes to move, the spider rapidly increases the pressure of its hemolymph, the arachnid equivalent of blood, forcing it into the legs and causing them to extend with sudden force. For a jumping spider, this system is not just for walking, but for propulsion. By modulating the internal pressure across different limbs, it can fine-tune both the direction and strength of its jump, effectively turning its body into a living piston system. Now the spider anchors a silken thread to the leaf. It is nearly invisible, a single strand drawn from the spinnerets with practiced precision. This is not a web, but a safety line, a tether to the world it is about to leave behind. The silk is light, flexible, yet strong enough to support several times the spider's weight. It is both insurance and instrument, a line of survival should the calculation fail. Every leap begins with this act of caution. The spider lowers its body slightly, adjusting its posture. Its legs compress, the abdomen dips, and for a heartbeat, everything goes still. Then, the launch. Silent, instantaneous, perfect. The spider arcs through space, suspended against a blur of green and light. In mid-air, the forelegs adjust minutely, the abdomen twists, and the trajectory shifts. This is not a ballistic jump, it's a guided one. Micromuscular control allows the spider to correct its course while airborne, aiming not where the gnat is, but where it will be. Few predators of this size exhibit such dynamic targeting, and yet this one performs it flawlessly, using vision, pressure, and motion in one unified act of precision. The landing unfolds in exquisite slow motion. The spider's forelegs make first contact, absorbing the impact through joint flexion. At once, the body compresses, anchoring against the prey. The gnat never even flinches. It's already immobilized. The chelicerae, twin fangs sheathed in velvet, pierce just behind the head. The venom, injected in minute quantities, acts with surgical speed. It's not meant to kill instantly, but to paralyze, halting muscle function while keeping the internal tissues soft for digestion. Within seconds, the gnat's wings stop beating, its body slackens, and the spider begins its careful feeding process. Jumping spiders don't drink their prey dry like some web dwellers, they feed selectively. Enzymes within the venom start the digestion externally, turning solid tissues into a protein-rich fluid. The spider then consumes this broth through a narrow mouth opening, filtering out indigestible matter. It's a method as efficient as it is clean, leaving behind only the ghost of a once-living insect, a fragile exoskeletal shell. As the camera pans back, the leaf trembles again, this time from the rhythmic tapping of the spider's forelegs. It's subtle at first, almost invisible, but when viewed closely, the pattern reveals purpose. The vibrations pulse through the surface, a sequence of coded signals. This is courtship behavior, the foot tap drumming used by males to attract females. The same precision that guides their leaps also orchestrates their communication. Each vibration is a message of fitness, timing, and identity. These spiders are, in every sense, mathematicians of motion. In hunting, they calculate the geometry of pursuit. In mating, they compose rhythmic proofs of existence. To misstep in either is to risk death. Females, often larger and stronger, will consume males that deliver the wrong signal or approach too boldly. The tapping, therefore, is not just serenade, but negotiation, a dialogue of frequency and restraint. Beyond the scene of predation and courtship lies a larger ecological truth. Jumping spiders occupy a vital middle tier in the trophic structure of their habitats. They are both predator and prey, both hunter and hunted. Their agility allows them to control populations of smaller insects like gnats, aphids, and mosquitoes, maintaining the balance that keeps micro-ecosystems stable. Yet their own lives hang by threads, sometimes literally, when faced with larger spiders, wasps, or birds that specialize in detecting motion. For this reason, the jumping spider's movements are always calculated not just for attack, but for escape. Each leap carries the dual potential of victory and survival. The hydraulic system that powers these leaps also gives the spider a unique advantage in environmental adaptability. Because movement is governed by internal pressure rather than sheer muscle strength, temperature fluctuations, which would normally slow down muscle contractions, have less effect. This allows them to remain active during cooler mornings when other predators are sluggish. The trade-off is fragility. A puncture or injury can lead to rapid depressurization, crippling the system. Nature's innovations always come at a cost. Back on the leaf, the spider completes its meal and begins to groom. Using its palps and front legs, it carefully cleans each segment, removing silk residue and adjusting the alignment of fine hairs called scopulae, microscopic pads that generate adhesion through van der Waals forces. These same hairs allow the spider to cling to smooth glass or hang upside down without slipping. Their efficiency rivals modern adhesive technologies, inspiring biomimetic research into climbing robots and micro-gripping materials. When the grooming ends, the spider returns to the edge, poised once again. Its eyes glint in the shifting light. Somewhere in the background, another gnat drifts by. The secondary eyes twitch first, then the head turns. The pattern repeats. Observation, calculation, tension. The leaf becomes a launch pad for evolution's ongoing experiment. Vision merged with mechanics, instinct paired with precision. There's a quiet irony in the scene. The spider, an animal no wider than a thumbnail, carries within it the same principles that guide ballistic missiles, flight simulations, and robotic design. Systems that predict future position based on current motion. Yet it does so without data processors, without algorithms, relying solely on evolution's patient calibration of nerves, muscles, and fluid pressure. As the camera pulls back, the leaf shrinks into the vast green tapestry of the undergrowth. Somewhere among the thousands of glinting eyes and trembling stems, another spider repeats the cycle, invisible yet inevitable. Every leap, every calculation, is another expression of nature's unbroken logic. Life seeking precision in a world built on chance.
The forest exhales at dusk. Shafts of amber light filter through the canopy, washing over the undergrowth in soft gradients of gold. In this fleeting hour between heat and darkness, one web dominates the still air, a vast, shimmering disk stretched between two branches. Against the sinking sun, it glows like spun brass, every thread catching the light in a way that seems almost unnatural. But this metallic sheen is real. It is a product of structure, not pigment, a golden silk woven by one of nature's most accomplished architects, the golden silk orb weaver. From a distance, the web appears delicate, the fragile artwork of a gentle craftsman. Up close, it is a machine of astonishing complexity. The radial lines stretch outward from the hub like spokes, taut and dry, built from dragline silk, a material stronger than steel by weight, engineered for support rather than capture. Between these radii spiral the true trap, the sticky capture silk, a viscoelastic marvel designed to absorb impact, cling to prey, and stretch without breaking. Each strand is coated with microscopic droplets that adjust their adhesive properties in response to humidity. On damp tropical evenings, the silk becomes softer, more elastic, and dramatically stickier, tuned by the air itself to perfection. The camera follows a bead of moisture sliding along one thread. It trembles, then stops, suspended in midair, revealing the thread's ability to flex without snapping. The combination of elasticity and adhesion is what makes this web one of evolution's most successful inventions. When an insect collides with the spiral, its kinetic energy disperses through the web, rippling outward in a controlled cascade. Instead of rebounding free, the prey is captured by the silk's micro-droplets, which deform and cling like liquid glue before gradually recoiling to hold the victim firm. This living tension is the orb weaver's art, a balance between strength and surrender. A faint hum enters the frame. The camera pans toward the source, a hoverfly navigating through the golden light. Its compound eyes shimmer, its wings blur with the rhythm of steady flight. Then, without warning, it crosses the invisible boundary. The impact is instant and final. The fly slams into the spiral, rebounds once, and halts, caught fast between the shining coils. Its frantic struggle sends vibrations racing along the radii, each pulse a signal encoded in amplitude and rhythm. At the center of the web, the orb weaver stirs. Her body, elongated and armored in fine iridescence, is built for both elegance and efficiency. Golden hairs line her legs, amplifying vibrations from every strand. The moment the fly strikes, the spider knows, not by sight, but by feel, the precise location, size, and species of her prey. Her sensory organs, the slit sensilla embedded along her exoskeleton, act as miniature strain gauges, measuring the frequency and intensity of the web's tremors. This is vibration telemetry at its purest, an organism reading its own architecture as if it were an instrument. She pivots toward the disturbance and moves with startling speed. Each step is measured, each contact point chosen. The legs never touch the sticky spiral. Instead, she races along the dry radial lines, her private highways through the maze. Within seconds, she reaches the hoverfly, which thrashes desperately, wings beating uselessly against the web's golden cords. The spider hesitates for a fraction of a second, interpreting the vibrations once more to confirm the prey's orientation. Then comes the strike sequence, a choreography as precise as clockwork. First, the detect, confirmation of prey identity and position. Second, the rush, rapid approach along non-sticky threads. Third, the wrap, silk shot from the spinnerets in tight spirals, binding wings and legs into an immobilized bundle. Fourth, the safety jab. Fangs pierce the prey's thorax, injecting venom laced with digestive enzymes that begin breaking down tissues even before death. Fifth, the suspend. The wrapped prey is lifted and tethered to a higher thread, away from opportunists like ants or parasitic flies that might try to steal it. Each step flows seamlessly into the next. The venom works fast, paralyzing motor neurons and halting movement within moments. The orb weaver's efficiency lies not only in her precision, but in her ability to read the physics of her own design. Every vibration provides feedback, confirming whether the prey is secure, whether the tension remains stable, whether the web needs repair. The camera now transitions to an analytical overlay, invisible lines tracing the web's structure as if viewed through the spider's sensory world. Each vibration travels outward in concentric pulses, refracted and slowed by the web's radial geometry. The amplitude reveals mass. The frequency indicates struggle. A large beetle might send slow, deep waves, a small gnat, fast and shallow tremors. The orb weaver's brain interprets these signatures with astonishing speed, distinguishing food from hazard, a feat equivalent to a human identifying the type of drumming struck in the dark by its tone alone. Behind the spider, the light shifts. As the sun dips lower, the silk begins to glow deeper, not just gold, but bronze, copper, even faint green. Scientists once debated why the web carries this distinctive coloration. The leading hypothesis points to an optical lure. Many flying insects are drawn to yellow wavelengths, mistaking the sheen for sunlit foliage or floral nectar. Others suggest the color is an incidental byproduct of protein composition, offering ultraviolet protection rather than visual deception. Whatever the cause, the result is the same. The golden orb weaver's web stands out to insects while remaining nearly invisible to larger predators. The humidity rises as twilight thickens. Each droplet on the silk swells slightly, tuning the viscoelastic properties once again. The capture spiral, now heavier, grows even more effective. The web breathes with the forest, responsive, adaptive, alive. The orb weaver remains at its hub, suspended like the conductor of a silent symphony, every limb and antenna tuned to movement. When not hunting, she performs maintenance, testing individual threads with delicate tugs. If a section has lost its tension or adhesive strength, she consumes the silk and reuses the proteins to spin fresh material. Nothing is wasted in this economy of precision. Then, from the periphery of the web, a subtle movement stirs, barely noticeable at first. A much smaller spider, no larger than the tip of a fingernail, edges cautiously into view. His body is duller, his legs shorter. This is the male. He shares her species, but not her scale. In golden silk orb weavers, sexual dimorphism reaches an extreme. Females can be up to 10 times heavier than males. The disparity is so vast that the male must live his life on the edge of survival, both literally and biologically. He moves tentatively, pausing with every step. The web that sustains her could easily become his death trap. Every vibration risks misinterpretation. The female's predatory reflexes are swift and unforgiving. To court her safely, he must mimic the rhythm of a leaf's rustle or a light breeze, sending subtle signals that distinguish his presence from prey. These vibrational knocks are part of an intricate communication system, a language of tension and release. As he approaches, the female's posture changes, but she does not strike. Timing is everything. Males usually attempt their advances only when the female is well fed, her abdomen swollen with recent meals. Starvation makes her unpredictable. He senses this, perhaps through pheromones drifting along the silk, and continues his careful advance. When he reaches the outer ring, he pauses again, drumming faintly with his forelegs. It is both a greeting and a question. If she remains motionless, he moves closer, a millimeter at a time. The entire process can take hours, a slow negotiation on a scaffold of death. The irony is unmistakable. The same structure that brings life to one becomes a mortal risk to another. For the male orb weaver, reproduction is an act of exquisite danger management. Even successful mating offers no guarantee of survival. Females occasionally cannibalize males during or after copulation, a behavior that provides nutrition for egg production. Some males, perhaps aware of this evolutionary calculus, attempt to mate and then sever the thread beneath them, dropping safely to the ground. Others are less fortunate, becoming sustenance for their offspring before those young even hatch. As the night descends fully, the golden threads fade into darkness. The web, once radiant, now becomes nearly invisible, a silent snare waiting for dawn. The female settles at its center again, legs outstretched, poised to interpret every ripple that the night delivers. Around her, the forest hums with unseen life, each movement a potential message. And somewhere below, the tiny male clings to a twig, alive for now, his gamble postponed until another dusk. In the end, the orb weaver's world is one of constant calculation, physics, chemistry, and instinct woven together. Her web is not merely a trap, it is a living sensor array, an extension of her own body. Each thread holds both risk and reward, tuned by humidity, light, and hunger. To watch her move is to witness nature's understanding of tension, the precise balance between creation and destruction, survival and surrender, predator and mate. The camera sweeps across an open meadow at dawn. The air is still cool, dew clinging to every blade of grass, and the light has that pale silver quality of a sky just beginning to warm. Amid this sea of trembling stems and seed heads, one shape stands out. A white zigzag glowing faintly in the center of a web strung between two tall stalks. In visible light, it catches the sun like a strip of silk ribbon, But under ultraviolet, the pattern blazes bright, an unmistakable beacon.
This is the stabilimentum, the signature mark of the wasp spider, Argiope bruennici. It is both her calling card and her gamble. The web itself spans nearly half a meter, a perfect geometric net suspended at knee height. Each radial line hums faintly in the breeze, anchored to the flexible grass that bends but rarely breaks. At the hub sits the architect, a spider banded in yellow, black and silver, her abdomen striped like a hornet's. The mimicry is deliberate, a visual deterrent honed by natural selection to mimic warning colors recognized across species. To a bird or lizard, that pattern signals danger, a wasp's sting, not a meal. To the camera's lens, it is a marvel of evolutionary deceit. But her true artistry lies not in her body, but in the silk she spins. The stabilimentum, that bright zigzag ribbon woven through the web's center, has intrigued biologists for generations. It is one of nature's most debated designs, its purpose still not fully settled. 3 primary hypotheses dominate. The first, that it lures prey, its ultraviolet reflection mimicking the spectral glow of flowers, drawing in pollinators like bees and butterflies. The second, that it warns predators, making the web visible to birds that might otherwise crash through and destroy it. And the third, that it serves as a structural reinforcement, stiffening the web against the mechanical stresses of wind in open meadows. None exclude the others. The wasp spider may use the pattern for all 3 reasons. A multifunctional signature of survival. The air stirs. A grasshopper launches from a nearby stem, its trajectory wild and unplanned. For an instant it clears the web's outer frame, but one leg brushes the spiral. The contact is minute yet catastrophic. The sticky threads grab, then stretch, converting kinetic energy into tension. The grasshopper flails, beating its hind legs against the invisible snare, but every movement tightens its bonds. The vibration spreads through the radial lines in sharp pulses, a coded message that the spider reads instantly. From the center she moves, not with the hesitant rhythm of a hunting orb weaver, but with the swift precision of a practiced killer. The wasp spider is built for speed over short distances. Her long legs, covered in fine sensory hairs, pick up the frequency of each tremor, guiding her directly toward the source. She stays to the dry radial lines, avoiding the sticky capture spiral that ensnares her prey. In seconds, she is upon the struggling insect. The attack unfolds in a sequence of practiced mechanics. First comes the rush, a burst of acceleration that brings her within striking distance. Then the wrap. Silk flows from her spinnerets in rhythmic waves, each pass binding the grasshopper's legs, thorax, and wings into a compact bundle. The spider works with mechanical efficiency, rotating her prey with her hind legs as she reels out thread, a process that entombs the insect in less than 5 seconds. Finally, the parcel hang. She hoists the silken bundle to a secure line, suspending it mid-air where ground predators cannot reach. Only then does she deliver the fatal bite, injecting venom that paralyzes and begins to liquefy internal tissues. The entire hunt, from impact to suspension, is over before the dew has even stopped trembling. While she feeds, the meadow continues to move. Beyond the web, a subtle shimmer rises above the grass as the morning sun heats the soil. Tiny filaments begin to lift from other webs scattered throughout the field, not from adults, but from their offspring. The camera tilts upward to follow the ascent of countless fine threads, each barely visible against the brightening sky. At their tips, miniature spiderlings dangle, lighter than air. One by one, they release their grip and let the rising thermals take them. This is ballooning, a dispersal strategy shared by many orb weavers, but perfected by the wasp spider. Each spiderling carries with it a microscopic electrostatic charge that helps the silk interact with Earth's electric field, increasing lift. The air current does the rest. Some will drift only a few meters, landing in nearby grasses to begin new colonies. Others, caught in stronger thermal updrafts, may travel kilometers, crossing fields, rivers, even entire valleys. For such small creatures, ballooning is both a journey and a lottery. Many perish, lost to wind or water, but enough survive to maintain the species' range. In this way, meadows miles apart remain connected by invisible bridges of silk. Back on the main web, the adult spider finishes her meal and begins to tidy. The stabilimentum still gleams in the growing heat, but now the air is restless. Gusts bend the grasses, and the web oscillates in slow waves. This is where the supposed mechanical stiffener hypothesis earns its weight. The zigzag ribbon, made of thicker, densely layered silk, acts as a tension regulator. It disperses wind energy, preventing the web from tearing under lateral strain. The structure behaves like a shock absorber, allowing the web to flex while maintaining integrity. In the open meadow, where there is little shelter, this adaptation makes the difference between a daily rebuild and a structure that lasts through the afternoon. Yet even the most efficient design carries trade-offs. The stabilimentum's brilliance attracts more prey. Studies have shown webs with the zigzag pattern capture significantly higher numbers of flying insects, but it also draws unwanted attention. Birds, particularly small insectivorous species, are drawn to reflective surfaces in search of prey. To them, the golden-white pattern resembles sunlight glinting off a moving wing. When they strike, the web is torn apart, often beyond repair. For the wasp spider, each rebuild consumes enormous energy. Producing silk is metabolically expensive. The proteins required must be synthesized from digested prey. A web destroyed by a bird means lost time, lost energy, and lost opportunity. Still, she rebuilds. Orb weavers typically construct a new web every day or two, recycling old silk by eating it before spinning anew. The wasp spider's work begins again at dusk, when the meadow cools and air currents soften. She measures the spacing of anchor points with her legs, stretching frame threads and establishing the radial layout before tracing the sticky spiral in perfect loops. Each turn of the spinnerets is informed by tactile feedback, a choreography of memory and instinct. The stabilimentum is added last, often in the center, though its exact shape and size vary. Some females build a simple vertical bar, others weave across or zigzag, depending on humidity, prey activity, and individual variation. As night descends, the web takes on a different life. In the dim light, the bright zigzag becomes less a lure and more a signature, a mark of presence in a vast, shifting field of silence. The spider waits motionless at the hub, her legs spread in a characteristic X shape, each limb resting on a separate radial line. Her posture ensures that she can detect the faintest vibration from any direction. Below her, crickets chirp, moths emerge, and the cycles of predation begin anew. Evolution's design is rarely singular in purpose. The wasp spider's stabilimentum stands as a symbol of that multiplicity, a single adaptation serving several overlapping needs. It is art, advertisement, and armor, signal, snare, and scaffold. Whether it deceives insects, deters birds, or simply strengthens her structure, it represents an evolutionary solution sculpted by millions of years of tension between visibility and vulnerability. By dawn, the web may be damaged again, a hole torn by wind or wings, but the spider will rebuild as she always does, each silk line anchored with unerring precision. In her world of light and tension, destruction is not failure, but rhythm. The meadow depends on her as much as she depends on it, each strand of her web part of a larger network of ecological exchange. Grasshoppers reduced to protein, spiders feeding birds, birds fertilizing the soil, plants rising again to support new webs. In that endless cycle of breaking and weaving, of risk and renewal, the wasp spider's golden zigzag remains, both a lure and a warning, an emblem of survival written in silk.
Night has fallen over the oak grove, and the air is thick with scent, not the floral sweetness of blossoms, but the pungent, fermenting musk of tree sap. A wounded oak bleeds slowly through a fissure in its bark, exuding amber droplets that shimmer in the beam of moonlight. To human eyes, it might seem like nothing more than the wound of an old tree. To a stag beetle, it is a tavern, a battleground,
and a stage for evolution's most theatrical duels. The camera descends toward the base of the trunk, following the slow crawl of armored shapes converging from every direction. Each is drawn by the same invisible trail. Pheromones carried on faint currents of air. The chemical signal of sap, rich in sugars, yeast, and ethanol, is irresistible. Males arrive first, lumbering over moss and roots like miniature tanks. Their polished exoskeletons gleam in the dim light, deep mahogany under the stars, and from their heads project the unmistakable icons of their kind, great branching mandibles that resemble the antlers of a stag. The scene is quiet, except for the steady chirp of crickets and the low drone of beetles shifting their weight against bark. The camera settles on one dominant male perched beside the bleeding sap. His mandibles open slightly, their serrated edges glinting. They look like weapons designed to pierce, but in truth, these are not cutters at all. They are levers. Their entire structure is adapted not for slicing prey or tearing wood, but for wrestling other males. Evolution has transformed the beetle's mouth into a set of tools for lifting, prying, and flipping rivals. A living example of biomechanical specialization through sexual selection. Another male approaches. He is smaller, with shorter mandibles, but a stockier build. Both pause, their antennae quivering in the humid air. Chemical cues mingle here. The scent of fermenting sap mixed with pheromones from males and females alike. For now, the two assess each other. A silent evaluation of size, strength, and determination. Then, as if triggered by some unseen signal, they engage. The camera tightens on their forelegs as they lock in place. Each tarsal claw hooks into the bark, providing critical traction. The claws are not simple gripping tools, but sophisticated mechanical anchors. Tiny setae along their inner surfaces increase friction against rough wood, allowing the beetle to channel force through its legs without slipping. This traction is vital. When two males collide, the battle is not one of biting, but of leverage. In slow motion, the first male raises his head, mandibles opening wide. The second braces, lowering his body for stability. Then the movement begins, a deliberate heave, the larger male's jaws closing around the smaller one's thorax. He lifts, applying torque at the point of contact. The physics of this action are precise. By shifting his center of mass backward and leveraging his mandibles as fulcrums, the beetle converts muscular force into rotational lift. The smaller male struggles, legs scrabbling against the bark. For a moment, the balance teeters, both locked in a tense equation of weight and leverage. Then the fulcrum shifts again, and the smaller male flips backward, tumbling off the trunk. The impact below is muffled by leaves. The victor holds his pose for a few seconds longer, mandibles raised like a champion's trophy. But there is no celebration here, only the continuation of instinct. He returns to the sap, lowers his head, and begins to drink. The camera lingers on his mouth parts, fine brushes and grooves lapping up the viscous liquid. The sap provides sugars for energy and a chemical signature that spreads his pheromones, marking the site as claimed. The defeated male, meanwhile, rights himself and begins to climb back toward the trunk. Despite the setback, he will likely try again. Stag beetle battles rarely end in death. Their purpose is demonstration, rather than destruction. Each encounter serves to sort dominance hierarchies among males competing for access to feeding sites, and more importantly, to females. As the night deepens, more males arrive. The air grows alive with the faint rasp of wings, each beat heavy and uneven. Their flight is labored, almost clumsy, a side effect of anatomy shaped for combat. Those great mandibles that dominate their heads shift the center of gravity forward, making flight aerodynamically inefficient. Large males can overpower rivals in close combat, but are slower in the air, less capable of precise maneuvering. Smaller males, though weaker in grapples, can fly more efficiently, covering larger territories in search of unguarded sap flows or receptive females. It is a balance between strength and agility, two evolutionary strategies coexisting within the same species. The camera pans upward, catching one such smaller male gliding in from the darkness. His wings beat with a high, dry buzz, the elytra parted just enough to let the membranous flight wings move freely. He lands deftly on the opposite side of the trunk, away from the dominant male. There, he begins to feed quickly, capitalizing on the moment before being detected. Sneaker tactics like this are common among smaller males. By avoiding direct confrontation, they still gain nourishment, and sometimes, when opportunity arises, the chance to mate. Suddenly, a new scent enters the air, subtler than sap, sharper than the musky odor of the males. The camera tracks a glint of movement from the undergrowth. A female stag beetle, broader and darker, climbs the trunk. She lacks the oversized mandibles of her male counterparts, her head instead shaped for function, strong enough to chew bark and access sap, efficient for survival. Her arrival changes everything. The males sense her presence through the airborne pheromones she releases, and instantly the sap site becomes a focal point of renewed aggression. Two males converge at once, antennae quivering, mandibles raised. The female continues upward, seemingly indifferent to the chaos around her. She will not choose randomly. Mate selection in stag beetles is a complex process shaped by both physical and chemical cues. Size matters, but so does endurance. A male that controls a sap source demonstrates not just strength, but resource-holding potential, an indicator of good genetics and fitness. The scent of his pheromones, enhanced by the fermented sugars of the sap, broadcasts that dominance. Yet the female's final choice depends on proximity and timing. In many cases, the victor of the most recent battle earns the right to mate first. The two contending males meet at the branch where she pauses. The larger of the two strikes first, hooking the other by the thorax. The smaller beetle braces his claws, using the bark's rough texture to resist being lifted. Again, the battle becomes a contest of leverage and geometry. The victor will be the one who maintains stability, who keeps his center of mass aligned directly above his grip points. The larger male strains, muscles along his thorax flexing. The smaller tries to twist free, but his footing slips. In an elegant, brutal motion, he is pried upward and flipped again, falling into the shadows below. The victorious beetle holds his place, mandibles wide. The female remains still, her antennae sampling the air. For a long moment, nothing moves. Then she continues her climb, settling beside him. Courtship, if it can be called that, is brief. He lowers his mandibles, vibrating his abdomen in short, rhythmic pulses, a tactile signal transmitted through the bark. It is not a display of affection, but confirmation, an exchange of readiness and recognition. Around them, the oak bleeds on, its sap continuing to draw life into this nocturnal theater. The wounds that attract beetles also feed bats, moths, and other sap drinkers. Each visitor leaves its trace, contributing to the chemical mosaic that defines this patch of bark. Ecologically, the stag beetle's jewels play a vital role. By contesting access to sap, males indirectly limit crowding, ensuring that only the strongest individuals maintain territories. This in turn reduces overexploitation of the resource, preserving it for longer within the same tree. Even conflict has its ecological equilibrium. As dawn approaches, the forest begins to cool. The dominant male, exhausted, retreats beneath a fold of bark to rest. The female departs, her eggs already fertilized, destined to be buried in soil at the base of an ancient oak. The next generation will spend years underground as larvae, feeding on rotting wood, before emerging as adults to repeat this same ritual of strength and chance. The camera pulls back, revealing the grove once more, silent, serene, yet marked by the faint glint of armor beneath the leaves. In the language of evolution, power is never absolute, only borrowed. Every victory here, every pry and flip, is temporary. The sap will flow again, and with it, the cycle of competition, flight, and persistence that defines the life of the stag beetle. Night returns to the oak grove, and with it, the murmuring hum of wings heavier and deeper than those of any other beetle in the forest. The air smells faintly of sap and yeast. The trees slow bleed, attracting an entire society of night feeders. Among them, armored figures crawl across the bark, their movements deliberate and powerful. This is the same oak that hosted the stag beetle duels. But tonight, the stage belongs to a different contender, the rhinoceros beetle, a creature defined not by elegance, but by brute, mechanical design. The camera pans down the trunk to a broad, dark shape, glistening in the moonlight. The beetle's carapace reflects the forest glow like polished obsidian, and from its head rises the unmistakable horn, long, curved, and smooth, the hallmark of a lineage obsessed with leverage. The horn's surface bears minute ridges, each formed during pupation, and its inner structure is lightweight yet incredibly strong, built from layers of chitin arranged like laminated armor. Unlike the stag beetle's branching antlers, this horn serves a singular purpose: to lift. A faint vibration runs through the bark. Another male approaches from below, drawn by the fermenting sweetness of the sap. Both are here for the same reason: access to food, and by extension to females that visit these feeding sites. The resource is finite and valuable, and competition is inevitable. The two beetles meet head to head, their antennae flicking in short, deliberate motions. Each measures the other's size, horn length, and stance. The air between them is tense, though silent. Then the larger beetle lowers his head. The horn slides forward like a siege weapon being positioned for assault. Its tip finds the narrow gap beneath his rival's thorax. The smaller beetle braces, hind legs digging into the bark. His feet, each equipped with adhesive pads covered in microscopic hairs, press down to create friction against the uneven surface. The pads work through a combination of van der Waals forces and mechanical interlocking, allowing the beetle to hold position even when inverted. Every muscle fiber in his legs contracts, transferring torque through his exoskeleton. For a few seconds, the two are locked in perfect stillness. A standoff of raw physics. Then the lift begins. The larger beetle flexes his horn upward, using it as a lever. But unlike the stag beetle's horizontal prying motion, this strike comes from below, relying on the coordination between horn and hind legs. The beetle's body acts as a pivot, his back arching as he channels power through the thorax. The hind legs, massive and jointed like pistons, push against the bark, converting force into upward torque. The rival begins to rise, claws slipping on splintering bark. Bits of wood flake away under the strain. For a moment, the smaller male resists, wings flaring beneath his elytra, legs thrashing for grip. But the lift is too clean, too precise. The larger beetle's horn tilts further back, and the rival loses his hold entirely. In a single, fluid motion, he is flipped into the air, tumbling backward down the trunk before vanishing into the leaf litter below. The victor stands still, chest heaving with slow, rhythmic expansions as if to reclaim his breath, though of course beetles do not breathe as we do. Air enters through spiracles, tiny openings along the abdomen, and diffuses through tracheal tubes to fuel the fight. Every motion, every flex of those powerful limbs consumes oxygen that has traveled not through blood, but through a network of branching capillaries carved into the insect's body. The camera widens, revealing the full environment. The oak trunk is alive with activity. Moths feed at the sap pools, their tongues probing the golden surface. Ants patrol the edges, gathering droplets. The sap itself bubbles faintly where yeast ferments within the sugary exudate, producing ethanol that fills the air with its sharp, sweet scent. Bark fragments litter the ground, physical records of countless battles fought here. Each groove, each scar, tells the story of generations of beetles competing for the same lifeblood of the forest. The rhinoceros beetle lowers his head to feed, using his mouthparts to lap the viscous fluid. He is a surprisingly gentle feeder, careful and methodical. The sap provides both energy and water, critical in the heat of summer nights. But it also serves as a meeting ground, a place where chemical communication defines hierarchy. The beetle's cuticle carries layers of pheromone compounds that announce his presence. Dominant males release stronger signals, deterring smaller rivals from approaching. Still, competition never ends. Every advantage is temporary, in a habitat defined by abundance and struggle. To understand the power behind this adult's horn, the camera cuts to an earlier chapter in his life, one hidden underground. The larva of the rhinoceros beetle spends several years in decay. Deep within rotting logs and leaf litter, it feeds on decomposing wood fibers, fungi, and organic matter. Each bite contributes to the recycling of nutrients back into the soil, breaking down lignin and cellulose that few other creatures can digest. These larvae are the quiet custodians of the forest floor, transforming dead wood into living earth. Nutrition during this stage is everything. The amount of decayed wood a larva consumes directly determines the size of the adult, and more importantly, the scale of its horn. Horn growth is a secondary sexual trait controlled by juvenile hormone levels, which fluctuate in response to diet quality. Well-fed larvae emerge as adults with massive horns capable of lifting rivals several times their own weight. Those less fortunate develop shorter horns and adopt alternative tactics, sneaking to the sap under cover of darkness or approaching from below branches where dominant males seldom patrol. In this way, the species maintains genetic diversity, balancing fighters with opportunists. The camera returns to the oak. The victorious beetle remains near the sap, but his dominance will not last long. A new challenger arrives, larger, heavier, with a broader thorax and longer horn. The first notices the vibrations immediately. The bark carries sound better than air. He shifts, raising his head again. The two meet in silence. Their horns clash, locking at the midline like antlers in a silent storm. For a long moment they strain, one pushing up, the other resisting downward. The tension in their legs sends ripples through the bark, small splinters flying. Then, with a sudden shift of weight, the balance breaks. The smaller beetle is lifted, his claws losing grip, and he falls backward. The battle lasts mere seconds, but determines hours of control over the resource. The camera lingers on the winner. His horn is chipped near the tip, a scar from countless previous fights. It does not hinder him. If anything, it marks experience. He feeds briefly before retreating into shadow, tucking himself under a curve in the bark to rest. As dawn approaches, the light turns soft and blue. The forest begins to stir. A pair of stag beetles climbs into view along the same trunk, their mandibles glinting faintly in the first light. The camera holds on this intersection of two evolutionary designs, the stag beetle's antlers and the rhinoceros beetle's horn. Both have emerged from the same ancestral blueprint. Enlarged head appendages evolved for combat over mates and territory. Yet the engineering solutions differ entirely. The stag beetle's jaws operate like pincers, designed for prying and flipping in horizontal duels. The rhinoceros beetle's horn is a vertical lever built for lifting and unbalancing from below. Which weapon wins depends entirely on context. On rough vertical bark, where traction is limited, the rhinoceros beetle's lift grants superior control. On horizontal surfaces or narrow branches, the stag beetle's prying motion offers better reach and stability. The two represent divergent paths to the same evolutionary goal: mechanical dominance shaped by environment, material, and body plan. Each proves that in the endless arms race of sexual selection, there is no single perfect design, only trade-offs, endlessly refined. As the sun rises, the last of the night's fighters withdraws into the dark seams of the oak. The sap slows, hardening under the warmth of morning. The forest quiets, leaving behind only traces, scratches in the bark, a faint glimmer of dried amber, and the memory of battles fought with elegance, hidden beneath brute force. The rhinoceros beetle's reign lasts only as long as the darkness allows. By the next night, the cycle will begin again, each horn tested anew in the endless contest for survival, strength, and the fleeting sweetness of morning breaks over the rainforest canopy in a wash of green and gold. The camera glides low through the undergrowth, where sunlight flickers like moving water across a forest floor, alive with motion. Beneath the ferns, a steady current flows, not of water, but of life itself. Leafcutter ants march in endless lines, each carrying a shard of fresh-cut foliage like a flag. To the untrained eye, it looks almost ceremonial, an army of miniature standard-bearers advancing through the jungle. But this is no parade. This is agriculture, industry, and engineering rolled into one of evolution's most sophisticated societies. The convoy reaches a break in the trail, a small gap where a fallen branch has left open air between two roots. The flow hesitates. Ants at the edge mill briefly, assessing the void. Then, almost imperceptibly, the front ranks begin to link together. One worker grips the substrate with its hind legs and hooks its mandibles into the waist of the ant ahead. Another does the same. Within seconds, the chain grows into a living bridge, flexible yet strong. The next ants cross over, their leaf fragments bobbing above the formation like sails over a pontoon. Each ant adjusts its grip according to the strain, distributing its body weight to prevent collapse. This bridge is not directed by any leader. It is the emergent result of thousands of years of collective behavior encoded in instinct. From above, the pattern of movement is mesmerizing. A green river flowing across the forest floor. Trails converge and diverge at junctions, creating a complex network of paths that shift with each passing hour. Leafcutter ants are chemical cartographers. They navigate not by sight, but by scent, following invisible lines of pheromones that mark the safest and most efficient routes. Where two paths meet, the concentration of pheromone determines priority. Trails with stronger chemical signals carry heavier traffic, while weaker ones are abandoned or rerouted. When an obstacle blocks a path, the first scouts to encounter it scatter, laying exploratory trails around the obstruction. The colony's collective intelligence then selects the best alternative, a decentralized solution achieved through sheer repetition and feedback. The camera dives underground, following one of these pheromone highways into the dark. The temperature drops, and the sound changes. Muffled, rhythmic, the soft percussion of millions of feet on soil. The ant colony extends deep beneath the forest floor, a metropolis of tunnels and chambers that can stretch for tens of meters and house millions of individuals. The walls glisten faintly with humidity, carefully maintained by the colony's architecture to ensure constant airflow and temperature control. Ventilation shafts open to the surface, drawing in oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide through convection. A natural thermoregulation system refined by instinct rather than design. Deeper still lies the true heart of this civilization, the fungus gardens. Here the workers tend to their crop with the precision of expert farmers. The fungus is Leucoagaricus gongylophorus, a species that cannot live independently of its ant hosts. The ants feed it chewed leaves, carefully mulched and mixed with their own saliva to create a nutrient-rich substrate. In return, the fungus produces swollen, nutrient-packed structures called gongylidia, which serve as the ant's primary food source. It is a relationship of mutual dependence so complete that neither species can survive without the other. The ants have become agriculturists, the fungus their domesticated crop. Among the workers, a smaller caste, known as nurses, tends the gardens with obsessive care. They remove dead fungal material, groom the hyphae, and relocate fresh substrate to areas of optimal growth. They even prune the fungus, stimulating new branching much as a gardener would trim a bonsai. The colony's success depends entirely on the health of these gardens, and the ants know it. But even the most meticulous farming attracts pests. The camera zooms in to reveal something extraordinary. On the shoulders of some workers, faint white patches shimmer under the light. Clusters of actinobacteria living symbiotically on the ants' cuticles. These bacteria are no parasites, they are allies. They secrete antibiotics that suppress parasitic molds, such as Escovopsis, a fungal invader capable of overrunning the gardens. Each ant carries its own pharmaceutical arsenal, constantly producing antimicrobial compounds that would rival the sophistication of human medicine. The partnership is ancient and precise. The ants feed and protect the bacteria, while the bacteria protect the fungus, a three-way alliance spanning tens of millions of years. At another level of the colony, smaller ants scurry about in near constant motion. These are minims, the tiniest members of the workforce, scarcely the size of a breadcrumb. On the surface, they are almost invisible among their larger sisters. Yet when the camera returns to the forest above, their presence becomes unmistakable. Along the leaf convoys, some of the larger workers carry not just leaves but passengers, minims clinging to the green surfaces like hitchhikers. Their role is not symbolic, it is defense. High above the forest floor, parasitic phorid flies circle in the humid air, drawn to the movement below. These flies specialize in one thing: attacking leafcutter ants. A female fly hovers over a worker, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When she lands, she tries to insert an egg into the ant's head capsule. The larva that hatches will eat the ant from the inside out. The minims are the countermeasure. They patrol the leaves like tiny sentinels, using their antennae to detect the flies and their mandibles to swipe them away. It is an air defense system as organized as the ant army itself, one that keeps the supply line open and uninterrupted. The camera follows the convoy deeper into the jungle. Every leaf fragment carried here represents more than food. It is the foundation of an ecological network. The ants' leaf cutting not only sustains their fungus, but also accelerates decomposition in the forest. By harvesting and processing vegetation, they recycle nutrients into the soil, influencing plant growth and carbon cycling. In some tropical ecosystems, leafcutter colonies move more plant material each year than all the mammalian herbivores combined. Their tunnels aerate the soil, improving drainage and fertility. In essence, these insects act as living architects of the forest's health. At a crossroad in the trail, the pheromone paths split again. The camera rises to reveal the branching structure, a fractal map of efficiency. Ants flow like traffic guided by invisible logic, rerouting instantly when an obstacle, such as a fallen twig, interrupts the flow. Scouts rush ahead to lay down new chemical trails, while workers test them in both directions. Within minutes, the entire colony has adjusted course, restoring the balance between harvest and home. It is a demonstration of self-organizing intelligence, complex behavior arising from simple rules, proof that coordination does not always require consciousness. As evening approaches, the light softens. The convoy continues, relentless. At the earlier gap, the living bridge is still in place, but now its members shift positions. Some crawl free, replaced by others taking their place. No individual remains in the bridge for long. The system distributes fatigue evenly across the group. The ant's sense of community extends beyond altruism. It is encoded survival. Every function, from bridge building to fungus cultivation, exists for the collective good. The camera pans outward, capturing the vastness of the network. Hundreds of trails threading through the forest like veins through flesh. Each leads to a single colony, one of many scattered across the landscape, each operating with precision that rivals any human infrastructure. Underground, the fungus gardens glow faintly in the artificial light of the crew's lamp. Soft, white, immaculate. On the surface, the minims continue their patrols, batting away the hovering flies with tireless devotion. In the final shot, the camera returns to the bridge. The ants' bodies gleam under the dimming sky, each segment catching the last light of day. Across this living structure, the convoy flows without pause, carrying the raw material of the forest toward the unseen heart below. The rhythm is continuous, ancient, and efficient. A system that predates civilization, yet mirrors it in complexity. Here, in the quiet logic of leafcutters, we glimpse the elegance of natural order. A society without leaders, a city without architects, a bridge made of bodies that holds not through command, but through cooperation. And beneath it all, the forest breathes easier, nourished by the unending labor of its smallest engineers. The camera opens high above a still pond at dawn, a mirror of pale sky framed by reeds and overhanging branches. Mist curls off the surface, drifting in loose ribbons that dissolve in the light. Below, faint depressions slide silently across the water, perfect circles gliding without a splash. These are water striders, members of the family Geridae, masters of the liquid frontier where air meets water. To the untrained eye, they seem to defy gravity, walking on a surface that should give way beneath them. But physics, not magic, keeps them afloat. Zooming closer, the lens captures the intricate mechanics of their footing. Each leg, impossibly thin and jointed, is covered in thousands of microscopic hairs. These hairs, known as setae, are not smooth. They are structured with tiny grooves that trap air. This layer of air repels water, creating a cushion of surface tension beneath the leg. The result is extraordinary. The strider's weight is spread over a wide area, and instead of piercing the surface, each foot presses a dimple into it, a flexible platform of liquid elastic. The anti-gravity illusion is simply the perfect exploitation of physical law. From above, the camera follows one individual as it drifts across the pond, propelled not by waves or wind, but by a rhythm of calculated strokes. The middle legs act as oars, pressing against the surface to generate thrust, while the hind legs steer and stabilize. The forelegs, shorter and more delicate, serve as sensors and weapons. Every movement is guided by vibration, because here on the skin of water, information travels as ripples. A breeze stirs the pond, scattering reflections. The strider pauses, its body angled low, antennae twitching. Through the water's surface, concentric waves begin to radiate. Not from wind, but from communication. Water striders speak in ripples, encoding messages through vibration. A quick series of short pulses means one thing. Slower, longer beats mean another. Courtship signals are rapid, evenly spaced, almost musical. A male uses these to announce his presence to females while warning rivals to keep their distance. Aggressive displays, by contrast, are slower, heavier, the aquatic equivalent of pounding on a drum. The strider's world is one of constant resonance, a pond-wide network of coded tremors that can be felt meters away. The camera cuts wider, revealing several striders spaced like constellations across the water's surface. Each occupies a territory, invisible but clearly defined by the reach of its ripples. When two signals overlap, the stronger one dominates, often leading to confrontation. Yet violence here is measured in efficiency, not spectacle. The striders seldom fight to injure. They compete to communicate dominance. In such an environment, sound waves are replaced by surface waves, a cheap, renewable energy system that carries meaning with perfect clarity. Suddenly, the tranquility breaks. Near a patch of floating duckweed, a mosquito lands to drink and miscalculates. Its fragile legs pierce the meniscus, anchoring it to the surface like a trapped aircraft. The struggle begins immediately. Every twitch sends out distress ripples that race across the pond. Within seconds, the nearest strider pivots. Its antennae, tuned to detect the tiniest change in wave frequency, register the disturbance. The ripples travel outward, their amplitude diminishing, but their rhythm unmistakable, an erratic, high-frequency signature of panic. The strider accelerates. Its mid-legs beat in short, controlled strokes, skimming the surface faster than a human hand could track. Water does not slow it. Surface tension pushes back with equal strength, allowing near-frictionless motion. The strider doesn't aim directly for the mosquito's position. Instead, it calculates, unconsciously but precisely. A meet point vector, the intersection of where the ripples originate and where they will be when it arrives. This predictive targeting is a kind of mechanical intuition, refined by millions of years of evolution. In a matter of moments, predator meets prey. The mosquito jerks violently, its wings flicking water that only deepens its trap. The strider's forelegs extend,
spined, hinged, built for grasping. With a quick strike, it pins the mosquito to the surface. The entire event is silent, the only visible trace a faint tremor in the water. The strider pierces its prey with needle-like mouthparts and begins to feed. There are no jaws to chew, no teeth to tear. Instead, digestive enzymes are injected, liquefying the mosquito's tissues from within. The meal is then drawn up as a nutrient-rich fluid through the straw-like proboscis. What remains afterward is a delicate husk, weightless enough to drift with the next breeze. As the predator feeds, the camera pans down to show the water's surface from below. Each of the strider's legs presses into the interface, forming a circle of light and shadow. Around the feeding site, ripples emanate outward, faint concentric rings expanding through the microcosm. To other striders, these signals are unmistakable, a feeding event. Yet they keep their distance, respecting the acoustic boundary that defines another's success. For a species that relies on vibration, silence is both camouflage and protection. When the meal ends, the strider lifts its forelegs, releasing the empty mosquito, which floats away like a spent leaf. The predator resumes its patrol, gliding toward a nearby reed. Here, the meniscus, the curved edge where water meets solid structure, becomes a new challenge. The surface tension that holds the strider up could easily trap it if misjudged. Yet the insect's anatomy compensates. As it approaches, it plants its forelegs onto the reed's base and begins to climb, each foot delicately shifting weight to avoid breaking the surface. The hind legs remain on the water, using the tension as leverage. The physics of its body allows it to bridge two worlds seamlessly: the liquid and the solid, the floating and the fixed. The camera follows as the strider ascends a few centimeters, perching halfway between air and water. Here it pauses to groom, using its mouthparts to clean each leg, re-spreading the fine air-trapping hairs. This ritual maintenance is vital. A single patch of wetted setae could spell disaster, collapsing the air cushion that sustains its buoyancy. Insects that lose this protection sink within seconds. The strider's meticulous hygiene is therefore a matter of life and death, a daily battle against the physics of adhesion. A wider shot reveals the full ecosystem. Beneath the striders, larvae of dragonflies and diving beetles patrol in shadow, apex predators of the submerged realm. Above, damselflies flicker like flashes of blue glass, and a kingfisher traces a darting silhouette over the water. The pond is a layered stage, every stratum ruled by its own laws. The water strider holds dominion only here, on the skin, the fragile frontier where tension alone separates air from liquid. Evening settles slowly, tinting the pond bronze. The wind falls away, and the surface stills once more. Across it, ripples begin to form again, not from feeding, but from communication. A male sends a pattern of short, evenly spaced beats across the water, announcing himself. Somewhere nearby, a female responds with her own rhythm. The waves meet and merge, producing interference patterns that guide them toward each other. Courtship, here, is a dance of mathematics. The pond becomes a vibrating field of messages, concentric circles intersecting, merging, and fading into quiet. The camera pulls back, high enough that the entire network of ripples is visible. Dozens of striders move like punctuation marks across the surface, each sending signals that overlap in silent conversation. To an outsider, it looks random. To those tuned to the language of the surface, it is organized, deliberate, and endlessly adaptive. Ripples, after all, are cheap. They require no energy beyond a flick of the leg, yet they can travel vast distances for an insect's scale. As twilight deepens, the last light catches on the pond's surface, turning every ripple edge to silver. The water striders move slower now, spacing themselves apart, each returning to its chosen patch of calm. The concentric rings fade gradually until only stillness remains, a mirror once more.
But beneath that calm lies a world constantly in motion, where communication and survival depend on the balance between weight and water, touch and tension. For the water strider, existence is not a matter of conquering the surface, but of listening to it, of reading the ripples, responding to vibrations, and living in perfect harmony with the physics that define its world. Every glide, every pulse, every fading ring is both signal and story, the language of life written across water, read only by those light enough to stand upon it. Midday heat drapes the wetland in a wavering shimmer. The air hums with invisible tension, a convergence of heat, humidity, and motion. Over a pond, the color of oxidized copper. Something cuts a line through the sky so fast that it's barely more than a glint. Then, as the camera locks focus, the shimmer solidifies into form. A scarlet dragonfly, its wings spread like panes of living glass. It hovers effortlessly, suspended between reflection and sky, the embodiment of precision in motion. This is Crocothemis erythrea, the scarlet darter, and it is on patrol. The dragonfly's flight line is invisible but strict, a circuit drawn between reeds and open water. Every few seconds it halts mid-air, body held at a perfect angle to the sun. This basking posture is not idle rest, it is calibration. The scarlet dragonfly's flight depends on thermoregulation. Its thorax, where the flight muscles lie packed in layers like braided cables, must remain within a narrow temperature band to sustain rapid contraction. In the cool of morning, the insect positions itself broadside to sunlight, absorbing warmth to prime its muscles. Later, when the heat peaks, it tilts to reduce surface exposure, dissipating excess temperature through convective cooling and through hemolymph flow, the slow movement of insect blood that carries heat away from critical tissues. Flight here is not just about muscle power, it is a constant negotiation with physics and thermodynamics. From above, the dragonfly appears almost mechanical. Each wing moves independently, controlled by direct muscles that adjust pitch, amplitude, and frequency in real time. This four-wing design, perfected over hundreds of millions of years, grants a degree of control that no modern aircraft can replicate. While most insects rely on synchronized flapping, the dragonfly can manipulate its forewings and hindwings separately, creating counterphase beats that generate both lift and thrust. When it wants to hover, the wings move in opposing patterns, cancelling horizontal force. When it wants to accelerate, the angles shift, the hindwings pulling while the forewings push. An aerial relay of torque and pressure that allows instant speed without a glide. The camera tightens on the motion, showing minute shifts in wing transparency as sunlight strikes at different angles. Each vein is both structure and conduit, filled with hemolymph that helps maintain elasticity and repair microfractures. The wings are not rigid panels, but flexible aerofoils that deform under stress, storing and releasing energy with every beat. Through this, the dragonfly achieves not brute speed, but efficiency, a mechanical elegance that allows long patrols without fatigue. Now, a ripple of motion below. A robber fly arcs across the surface, chasing its own prey. A gnat that zigzags just above the water. The dragonfly's compound eyes lock on. Each eye is a hemisphere of roughly 30,000 ommatidia, each functioning as a separate photoreceptor tuned to motion and polarized light. Together, they provide nearly full panoramic vision. But what makes the dragonfly extraordinary is not the breadth of its sight, but its ability to predict. The lens overlays faint on-screen vectors, a simulation of what the dragonfly sees. Instead of tracking where the robber fly is, it calculates where it will be. Through neural computation that rivals advanced missile guidance, the dragonfly's brain determines an intercept course based on angular velocity, distance, and relative motion. It adjusts wing angles to curve its trajectory toward the future position of its prey, an algorithm of instinct refined by natural selection rather than code. In a burst of speed, it launches. The air around it vibrates with the sound of wings cutting through resistance. The robber fly dives, unaware it has become the hunted.
The camera follows the scarlet predator in slow motion, body level, abdomen acting as a stabilizing rudder. The four wings blur in asynchronous motion, creating micro-adjustments in yaw and roll to maintain precision through the turn. Each correction happens faster than human perception can register. In less than a second, the dragonfly covers several body lengths, approaching its target at a perfect intercept angle. At the point of contact, there is no collision, only capture. The forelegs, lined with stiff bristles, snap upward in a cage-like formation. The robber fly is trapped before it can react, its wings folding inward against its predator's armored thorax. The dragonfly halts mid-air, then rises slightly, using the momentum of flight to steady its grip. It bites at the prey's neck, injecting enzymes that liquefy internal tissues. The process is quick and efficient, evolved for mid-flight consumption. Within moments, only fragments of the robber fly remain, dropped into the pond below as the dragonfly resumes patrol. But this hunt is not just a feeding event, it is a territorial performance. Every dragonfly defends a stretch of airspace that encompasses ideal hunting grounds and potential mating sites. The scarlet coloration, achieved through carotenoid pigments and light-scattering microstructures within the cuticle, acts as both warning and advertisement. Under the midday sun, the red appears metallic, flashing with every banked turn. The brightness is not accidental. It signals vitality, a visual claim to dominance in a field of rivals. The camera pans outward, revealing another scarlet form at the edge of the frame. The intruder hovers just above the water, wings beating in perfect counterphase to maintain a stationary hold. Both males freeze, facing each other across an invisible boundary. For several seconds, they remain suspended, 2 points of equilibrium in the humid air. Then, as if cued, they accelerate simultaneously, spiraling upward in a blur of red and gold. The aerial duel is silent, but decisive. Each tries to outmaneuver the other, using roll and pitch to bluff or intercept. Occasionally their wings brush, producing a faint, dry snap. The first to falter loses altitude. The victor remains poised at the patrol line, reclaiming the corridor. No blood is drawn, yet the message is clear. This stretch of sky is taken. Below, the water responds to the motion above. Concentric ripples spread from the points where stray wing beats touch the surface, catching fragments of reflected light. Tiny fish dart away beneath the shimmer. The dragonfly hovers again, head tilting slightly downward. Its compound eyes scan not only for movement, but for polarization, the unique reflection pattern of light bouncing off water. Through this ability, it distinguishes prey from glare, living from inanimate. It is an adaptation shared by only a few insect predators, allowing perfect discrimination even in blinding brightness. As the sun begins to lower, the air cools and the colors deepen. The dragonfly's body now glows a darker crimson, its wings glinting like molten glass in the fading light. It shifts to a basking perch on a reed, facing the last warmth of the day. The legs grasp the stalk with hooks that can sense vibration, each tremor through the plant an alert to nearby motion. The wings open slightly, catching the residual heat that keeps the thoracic muscles supple for a final patrol before dusk. The camera follows as it launches once more, the background now a wash of teal and amber. The flight is measured, slower, almost ceremonial. There are no rivalries now, only a reaffirmation of control. As the dragonfly sweeps past the camera, the sunlight flares across its abdomen, producing a sudden flash of intense red, a natural signal flare marking ownership of the airspace. This final display is both territorial and aesthetic, a byproduct of the same structures that regulate temperature and pigment reflection. In the stillness that follows, the pond mirrors the world above it, reeds swaying, ripples fading, dragonflies reduced to silhouettes gliding over the reflective skin of water.
Each movement seems effortless. Yet beneath it lies a symphony of mechanics, physics, and evolutionary design. The scarlet dragonfly is more than a hunter. It is an aerial mathematician, a thermal engineer, and a living reminder that precision can emerge not from invention, but from adaptation. As the camera pans out, the water and sky merge into one color, teal giving way to dusk blue. The dragonfly makes one last pass across the pond, banking sharply before vanishing into shadow. For now, the patrol ends, but the air it claimed remains charged with the unseen geometry of its flight, the echoes of an intercept pilot tracing invisible arcs through the fading light. The light in the banana grove is fading. Warm gold collapses into the deep green of dusk, and the air thickens with the scent of ripening fruit. Broad leaves hang heavy with humidity, each one large enough to cast its own shade, turning the understory into a shifting maze of light and shadow. Through this half-light glides a form both ghostly and deliberate. A butterfly large enough to startle the unprepared observer. Its wingspan stretches nearly as wide as a human hand, and each beat of those soft, dusky wings stirs the air in slow, deliberate pulses. This is the owl butterfly, Caligo eurylochus, named for the great staring eyes that adorn its wings. Illusions so perfect that even seasoned predators hesitate. The camera follows the butterfly as it weaves between the banana trunks. Its flight is slow, almost heavy, but never clumsy. Unlike its diurnal cousins that dart through open sun, the owl butterfly moves during the crepuscular window, that narrow band of time between day and night when few others fly. In this dimness, color loses meaning, and motion becomes the dominant visual language. For the owl butterfly, this timing is a calculated compromise. The daytime brings sharp-eyed birds and lizards, while the night belongs to bats and spiders. But at dusk, the competition thins. The fading light cloaks the butterfly's movements, blurring it against the shadowed foliage, giving it precious minutes of relative safety in which to feed, mate, and move. The butterfly drifts downward to a tree trunk, landing on the rough bark with a sound too faint to hear. Its wings fold up, revealing their outer surfaces, mottled brown, tan, and umber, like the bark itself. The camouflage is near perfect. Only when the butterfly opens its wings does the illusion break. Across the hindwings bloom two enormous eyes, each ringed in black and gold, each with a sharp white highlight that catches what little light remains. They are not random patterns, but refined instruments of deception, eyespots, sculpted by evolution to manipulate the behavior of predators. A small bird enters the frame, a tanager, drawn by the faint flicker of motion. It hops closer along a branch, head tilted, body tense. The butterfly remains motionless. Then, with deliberate slowness, it spreads its wings again. The sudden flash of the eye spots halts the bird mid-strike. It freezes, head jerking back, momentarily confused by what it sees. The reflex is ancient, a predator's instinctive caution in the face of a gaze. The pattern exploits this very bias. To the bird's vision, attuned to contrast rather than detail, the two circles are unmistakably ocular, large, forward-facing, and staring. They suggest something bigger, something aware, something not to be trifled with. This hesitation, known as the inspection delay, is often measured in seconds, but in nature, seconds decide survival. The butterfly needs only that brief pause to pivot, to drop into cover, or to let the bird's interest fade into uncertainty. The camera zooms in as the bird edges closer again, no longer fearful, but cautious. It pecks once, a quick, exploratory jab. The strike lands not on the butterfly's thorax, where vital organs lie, but on the outer margin of the wing. A fragment tears away like paper. The butterfly lurches upward, its damaged wing edge fluttering irregularly, but it escapes into the dark. Those torn edges are not signs of failure, but evidence of design. The outer wings of the owl butterfly are reinforced with flexible veins that allow controlled tearing. Their shape, irregular and scalloped, mimics the look of decay or leaf damage, helping the insect disappear when at rest. Near the lower edge of each hindwing lies a small, curved protrusion, often mistaken for a tail. This structure, combined with contrasting patterns around it, functions as a decoy. Birds frequently aim for these false extensions, misjudging the butterfly's orientation. The attack shears away expendable tissue while leaving the body intact. Evolution here does not demand perfection. It demands survivable imperfection. The butterfly settles again, this time on a banana stem glistening with sap. It uncoils its proboscis, a slender tube, hollow and flexible, and dips it into the sugary fluid. Unlike many butterflies that feed on nectar, the owl butterfly often drinks from fermenting fruit or sap flows, seeking the high-energy sugars that sustain its slow but powerful flight. The feeding process doubles as camouflage. With wings closed and body pressed flat, the insect becomes another patch of bark in the fading light. Only when startled does it reveal the spectacle of its eyes once more. The camera pans upward to follow the tanager as it departs, vanishing into the canopy. In its wake, the forest falls quiet, except for the faint buzz of mosquitoes and the low rhythmic croak of distant frogs. Dusk has deepened into full twilight. The butterfly's compound eyes, composed of thousands of individual lenses, adapt to the changing light with remarkable sensitivity. Each ommatidium captures a sliver of brightness, together forming a mosaic image optimized for contrast rather than color. In daylight, this would be a disadvantage. At dusk, it is an advantage that allows the butterfly to navigate where others are nearly blind. The owl butterfly's body, though large and heavy compared to most Lepidoptera, is finely tuned for stability in low light. Its broad wings produce slow, deliberate beats that minimize turbulence. The slower motion also reduces the high-frequency echoes used by bats to locate prey, a side effect of flying at the boundary of night, where echolocating hunters are only just emerging. This timing strategy, shared by a few other large tropical butterflies, allows the owl butterfly to occupy an ecological niche between day and night, the brief intermission when the forest shifts its cast. As the camera tracks deeper into the grove, the lens finds another form, smaller, greener, and hidden among the leaves. A caterpillar sways on a stem, its body thick and ridged, its head sculpted into false vertebral ridges. It is the larval stage of the same butterfly. The resemblance to a snake is uncanny. The front segments broaden when threatened, and paired eye-like markings flare with each movement. When disturbed, the caterpillar lifts the front of its body and waves it side to side in a sinuous, serpentine motion. To a bird or lizard, this is no harmless larva, but a miniature serpent. And instinct demands retreat. The snake sway bluff is a textbook example of Batesian mimicry. Harmless prey imitating dangerous forms to trigger avoidance in predators. This defense begins long before the eyespots of adulthood ever appear. The continuity between larval bluff and adult display reveals an evolutionary narrative of visual manipulation. In every stage of its life, Caligo eurylochus leverages perception, not speed or strength, but psychology. The caterpillar deceives with motion. The adult deceives with image. Both rely on exploiting the limitations of other creatures' senses. Where a bird sees threat, there is none. Where it sees safety, there is danger. The camera cuts once more to the adult, now perched in near darkness. Its wings are closed, eyespots hidden. Around it, moths take to the air, their pale bodies flickering like ash against the black canopy. The butterfly remains still, conserving energy. Soon it will climb higher, seeking a sheltered leaf underside to rest until dawn. Each night is a fragile truce between predator and prey, light and shadow, visibility and concealment. When morning comes, the butterfly will wait again for dusk before venturing out. Its day belongs to stillness. Its life depends on patience. In the arms race of the tropics, where every color and movement is scrutinized, The owl butterfly's survival is a triumph of illusion, an art perfected not for beauty, but for hesitation. The final shot lingers on the torn wing of the earlier individual. The damaged edge catches the last glint of fading light, forming a silhouette that still resembles an unblinking gaze. Even wounded, the illusion holds. The predator's eye, trained to detect weakness, sees instead the stare of a larger being. For a moment, even in absence, the butterfly commands respect. In the quiet of the grove, the great eyes stare out from the wings of darkness, symbols of vigilance, deception, and endurance. The forest exhales, and the illusion fades with the night.